ask any dermatologist and they'll say one of their top pieces of advice to keep your skin healthy and safe is to wear sunscreen every single day. Now, to achieve this routine status, every skincare and makeup brand in the world has their own SPF product line. So we wanted to know, how the hell did we get here? Today it seems like the term SPF is coming up more than the term STIs in a college dorm room. But the concept of putting on a protective layer over your skin to protect yourself from the sun is not new, or to protect yourself from sexually transmitted diseases, but that would be a video about condoms, and we haven't made that yet. If you want to see a video about that, we could do that though. Now, ancient civilizations used stuff like olive oil, rice bran, and plant extracts on their skin as a shield against the sun's rays. Sunscreen as we know it today became a thing in the late 19th century when it was discovered that chemicals like zinc oxide and titanium dioxide created a strong protective layer between the skin and the sun's rays. But in 1928, a Swiss chemistry student named Franz Gater got a gnarly sunburn while he was skiing, and then he went on a humongous adventure to invent the world's first chemical sunscreen. It was thick, greasy stuff that gave him a whopping 2 SPF? Wow. And then he got it to 4. I thought that was 20 when I first read this. Now, naturally, this formula has been improved upon over time, thankfully. And now you can get sunscreen in every imaginable way, from creams to lotions to gels to sprays to sticks and lip balms. Yeah, this stuff is everywhere nowadays. And you certainly will not be finding a measly 2 SPF anymore. Now you can get up to 100 SPF if you really want to go balls to the wall with your sun protection. Now, this future-proof episode is unique in the sense that we have an insider to the whole sunscreen world. Our writer, Caroline, is a ginger, so she's basically been slathered in stuff since she left the womb, apparently. And so I don't want to say that we know the goods on this situation, but she is passionate, I would say, more than I was expecting. Today, there are more brands selling sunscreen than we can even count. But one major sunscreen brand is responsible for the fact that we wear the stuff every day, and that is Coppertone. In 1942, the Army Air Force found that dark red veterinary petroleum could protect the skin from the sun, and it was inexpensive, waterproof, and non-toxic. So they started giving it to the soldiers who were stranded in the desert or on life rafts or whatever. At the time, there was a World War II airman who happened to also be a pharmacist named Benjamin Green. And he used the stuff and he decided to create a more appealing version that civilians would be willing to wear. He added ingredients like cocoa butter and coconut oil, and thus Coppertone was born. To make it more appealing to the masses, he put an iconic picture of a little girl and her dog at the beach with the line, "Guard your exposure, but don't be a paleface," which is a catchphrase that would not do super well today. The idea was that using this product could help you achieve that nice sun-kissed glow without getting burned. Now, this probably would have been the end of the story right here if it weren't for a trend that would bring SPF back into relevance in a whole new way. See, around the same time that sunscreen was gaining in popularity, the concept of tanning was also taking off. For centuries, having lighter toned skin was a sign of wealth and privilege because, you know, racism. And one of the reasons that ancient civilizations used stuff like olive oil and rice bran on their skin was to preserve their paleness, because it basically showed that you didn't have to work. But things completely shifted in the 1960s when Coco Chanel went on a Mediterranean holiday and came back with tanned skin. Suddenly, the way to show that you were upper class was to have that copper-toned skin that says, "I just spent 7 days lounging on my yacht in the middle of the ocean. Why are you so pale, you peasant?" So no, it's not a surprise that for the next couple decades, suntan lotion, tanning beds, and self-tanning products became all the rage, until we realized that they're bad. Now, for our super pale and freckled ginger writer Caroline, the whole, sun damage causes skin cancer concept was probably pretty well understood. But the truth was, and is, that it is a fairly new revelation. This is just the classic human experience of not actually testing or thinking about something, but rather just doing it, and then when bad stuff happening, everyone goes, "Oh, we won't do that anymore. Like Spotify and Netflix are just the product of a bunch of millennials who were tired of explaining why their desktop computers spontaneously burst into flames. Except in a lot of those cases, humans are really bad at learning their lessons, and we just keep doing it anyway. Hi there, quick interruption to let you know that yes, we know that Reef Safe is a big component of the sunscreen conversation, but it was just too much to fit into a single video. However, we have just launched a Patreon-only podcast where we do a little bit more of a deep dive into some of the less clickbait, YouTube algorithm-worthy subjects. So if you are interested in seeing exclusive content from us on the subject matter that we cover on this channel and support what we do, you can head over there and check us out on Patreon. But now we're gonna go back into the video. Now, of course, it is not like no one knew that the sun's UV rays could be harmful. A German physician named Dr. Paul Unna first made the connection from sun exposure and skin cancer back in like 1896. But the modern messaging that we have around skin cancer really grew as the response to the sun tanning trend.
Oh, dear God, this should be outlawed.
Who would have thought that laying out in the sun all day with like a reflective board up to your chin would be a bad idea?
Oh man, I think I cooked myself.
Between the 1980s and the 1990s, a ton of safe sun education was released. The American Academy of Dermatology and the Skin Cancer Foundation both put out campaigns emphasizing the importance of regular sunscreen use. And this is when dermatologists started telling their patients to use sunscreen every single day. Now, if you've ever stood in the sunscreen aisle in the drugstore, you know that things are a little complicated out there. And on YouTube, there is a surprising amount of videos from dermatologists explaining the endless varieties of sunscreen available on the market today. So you can go into your own little rabbit hole adventure if you would like after this. But here is a little bit of what we discovered, the most important of them being the whole concept of SPF. Now, the problem with SPF is that everybody knows it's good, but basically nobody knows what it is. Just like electrolytes and the term certified organic, which are actually two other videos that we've already made if you're interested in those. Today, companies can just slap an SPF label onto any old moisturizer, cream, or lip balm, you name it, and people will buy it without having any idea what the hell's going on. SPF stands for Sun Protection Factor, and it refers to how well a product blocks UVB rays. An SPF of 30 means that you could be out in the sun 30 times longer before you get a sunburn than if you had no sunscreen at all. This is, of course, assuming that you followed the instructions and you applied it every couple of hours, which I didn't even know was how you're supposed to do it. So don't do what I did. Getting more complicated now, an SPF of 30 is not actually twice as potent as an SPF of 15. In fact, it only filters out about 4% more UVB rays, and an SPF of 50 is only 1% better at blocking rays than 30. So we have a good chunk of people buying sunscreen specifically for the SPF rating, and it honestly doesn't make that much of a difference past 30. But you try telling that to Caroline. Now, some dermatologists will recommend an SPF of 50 or as high as you can get because turns out we suck at applying sunscreen generally as a species, but other times they'll just tell you 30 is fine, which adds to the confusion for people just trying to buy something so they can go to the beach. But here is the kicker here, because SPF doesn't actually refer to anything other than UVB rays. It doesn't talk about UVA rays, which I didn't even know existed and apparently don't contribute to sunburn, but they penetrate deeper into the skin. So if your bottle doesn't say broad spectrum on it, you're missing out on a whole part of the sun care equation. But unfortunately, even if you know all your SPF facts, that won't be enough to discern a good product. The Environmental Working Group has scientists regularly testing what's out on the market, and every year they publish a sunscreen guide based on its data. I don't want to depress you here too much, but the findings are not very comforting. Like, apparently, on average, in 2021, American sunscreens reduced the ultraviolet exposure by only half of what would be expected. Only 1/3 of these products could pass EU standards of sun protection. And that's not even getting into the industry's rocky history with issues like cancer-causing chemicals, like the stuff they were invented to protect you from? But here's where things get actually the most interesting for me. Recently, sunscreen went from a product that you kept in your beach bag until summer came around to something that we are using on a daily basis in our face creams and our moisturizers whenever we possibly can. And this is on our obsession with looking young. As soon as SPF and sun protection became a part of the beauty industry, everything changed. If you Google the best anti-aging skin products on the market today, sunscreen is guaranteed to be on that list. We are obsessed with not getting old. Finding a single gray hair or a frown line is a devastating blow for a lot of people. And sunscreen is just one of a million products that can promise to keep you looking youthful as long as possible. So much so that skincare experts say that we should wear it even on days when the sun isn't shining or when we just stay inside watching future-proof videos all day. The whole anti-aging movement is a brilliant marketing scheme for skincare and wellness brands because every person on the planet ages, which means that they have an endless amount of marketing material until you're dead, and everybody's gonna do it. So it's like, boom, baby, milk it into the grave. Now, of course, don't get us confused here. We are not questioning the risk of skin cancer and whether or not you should wear sunscreen or not when you're outside, because obviously you should. We're also not going to tell you what type of sunscreen you should wear because that is a personal choice and there's a billion options. We are merely here to point out that when it comes to sunscreen, there is a deeply psychological factor to it that goes way beyond simple sun safety. Another thing to remember here is that wearing sunscreen is only one aspect of sun protection, right? Like wearing hats, sunglasses, and other protective things is a huge part of this equation, along with finding a shady spot to hang out when you're outside. But obviously that is not a part of what people talk about when it comes to this industry, because you can't make money off of the shade of a naturally growing tree or, like the sun hat you've had for 5 or 6 years.
Hello?
Now, we understand that skincare is always going to be a complicated and sensitive subject matter that preys on our insecurities to sell products. It seems like there's always a new product that you need to keep your skin looking great, and that changes all the time. Case in point, since anti-aging has gotten some backlash for being very obviously ageist, some brands have shifted their marketing to say age positive instead. Now, of course, we just want to remind you that this video is not designed to be an exhaustive list or, a total and full breakdown of the science of sunscreen. It is supposed to be a kickstart for you to maybe give you an awareness of something you didn't know about before and maybe give you a bit of a nudge to be a little bit more thoughtful about your purchasing decision. Just like our resident Ginger Caroline, your needs are not going to be the same as everyone else's. And just because a skincare company says that you look old and dumpy doesn't mean that you have to buy their shit. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure that you're subscribed, and then we'll see you every single week on Wednesday. Bye-bye.